Marksburg Castle and Koblenz, a Shiny Visions production, copyright 2020. After the splendid cruise through the Rhine River Valley in the morning, we arrived at the town of Braubach for a short stop. Overlooking this town is Marksburg Castle, seen up high on the steep hill from our cruise ship. Throughout the 36-mile stretch of this designated UNESCO World Heritage Site along the Rhine River Valley, there are 40 castles and fortresses. Of these structures, the Marksburg Castle was only one of two that remained intact through the centuries. Not only that, this 800-year-old castle has been occupied for over 700 years by various families. The continued maintenance and upkeep required for inhabitation no doubt contributed to its well-preserved condition. We were taken by bus up to the high perch of this castle and waited for our guided tour to begin. It appeared that the staff was well practiced in handling masses of visitors to the castle, and our group waited our turn in a well-ordered manner. Once on the tour, we saw that the vantage point from Marksburg Castle provided not only strategic military lookouts for the fortress, but today offers remarkable views of the Rhine River Valley, as well as the lovely town below. We admired the scenes of the peaceful, winding river and the closely clustered centuries-old homes of the charming town of Braubach that nestled among the trees along the Rhine's banks. We walked up what was called the Rider's Stairway, an extremely uneven, rocky, ramp-like structure that men on horseback used to enter the castle. Along this stairway were displayed coats of arms of the many previous occupants of the fortress through the centuries. Of course, they were all families of very wealthy nobility. The Great Hall is the oldest residential building and contains stately living quarters. Today, this section houses the offices of the German Castles Association. The Marksburg Castle was donated to this association in 1900. Outside the Great Hall stood cannons positioned to protect the castle from enemies throughout the Rhine River Valley. We viewed the wine cellar with its large barrels, once filled with fermenting juice made from grapes harvested from this famous wine region. The great Gothic hall had a huge adjoining kitchen and a fireplace large enough to roast an entire deer. This banquet hall that hosted large gatherings had an interesting feature which caught everyone's attention. Just off the large room, at the end of a short hallway, was a toilet. Back in medieval times, only chamber pots or the great outdoors were used as toilets, so this bathroom was certainly unusual. But also, this little alcove was built intentionally with no door. You see, culture of the time did not consider using the bathroom something that required privacy. Therefore, rulers conducted meetings while on the toilet, as their retinue assembled around him. Also, without a door, people answering the call of nature would not need to miss out on conversation during gatherings. I assumed that by the fact that there was a toilet inside meant that this castle was incredibly progressive for the time and had indoor plumbing. But those thoughts were quickly dashed upon seeing the outside of that bathroom. It was merely a bump out from the castle wall, with its contents falling to an increasingly well-fertilized garden below. And speaking of this garden below, it contained examples of interesting plants used in the medieval era. Some herbs were used for medicinal purposes. Other plants were toxic, poisoning, was a common method of getting rid of enemies at the time. This little chapel was dedicated to Saint Mark in the 15th century and is also the namesake of the castle. Its surprisingly small size felt like that of a small modern bedroom. As we all crowded into the room, we were told that it was designed intentionally for attendees to stand during the entire service. In the armory room, there was a rare collection of weaponry and armor from the various centuries. There was a superb display of armor worn by Gothic knights and Roman legionnaires dating from 600 BC to 1500 AD. They showed the advancements of design through the years. Few other museums in the world have a collection as thorough as this one. We walked past the torture chamber, still with some remnants of implements used to impart pain and suffering. I intentionally did not linger in this area, but walked swiftly past. Punishments and interrogation methods were brutal and horrific in medieval times. We had a full agenda for this day, and soon after this tour of Marksburg Castle, we boarded the buses and headed for our next city on our tour, Koblenz. We arrived in Koblenz in late afternoon that same day. It appeared to be another amazing city to explore, but our daylight and time was limited, so we hastily left our ship and power-walked through the city, seeing as much as we possibly could before dinner and nightfall. Our first sight immediately after docking was the imposing Ehrenbreitstein Fortress on a hill overlooking the river and across from our ship. It is Europe's second largest preserved fortress. This hill was first settled in the 4th century BC, and there was a Roman fortification around 400 to 500 AD. The building of the current structure was begun in 1100, with subsequent improvements through the years. The fortress today towers 400 feet above the Rhine River and has lovely gardens and platforms to take in the beautiful sights below. On the property are several museums illustrating its history, including exhibits on winemaking, photography, and archaeology. Outdoor concerts and plays are also performed here. The Ehrenbreitstein is the northernmost point of the upper Middle Rhine Valley and is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Don't miss out seeing this great fortress because of the daunting location. You don't have to hike up that steep peak. A half-mile scenic cable car ride can comfortably take you to the top. Koblenz started in ancient times and celebrated its 2000th anniversary in 1992. Julius Caesar conquered it in 1000 BC. It became part of the Holy Roman Empire in 925 AD, and it was bombed heavily in World War II. The different eras and reconstructions of Koblenz give it a patchwork of various architectures. Its rich historical background, along with its progressive culture, food and wine scene, and upscale shops, gives the city a special appeal. Outdoor cafes are plentiful as locals and visitors alike enjoy the many wine bars and eateries serving the famous offerings from the Rhine River Valley. Koblenz was crowded today as we made our way quickly through the streets. There was activity everywhere, including a summer festival. The Electoral Palace was commissioned in the late 18th century. It now houses various offices of the federal government. That was it for our whirlwind tour of Koblenz. It had been a long, full day. We cruised through the Rhine River Valley in the morning, toured Marksburg Castle and Braubach after lunch, and finally powerwalked through Koblenz in the afternoon. There was much more of this area to explore, as with all stops we make on our grand European tour, but perhaps there will be opportunity in the future to return. Thanks for watching my video of the Marksburg Castle and the city of Koblenz. Our next stop on our Viking Grand European tour, as we wind down our journey, will be Cologne, Germany, so please stay tuned. This is Shiny Visions.